Let's get into the early game augment guide for patch 13.10. So I made a few updates to the augment list because I always take feedback, and I noticed a lot of people wanted to see what the tiers meant each and every time, so I added like a little note next to them in the tiers. So let's start off with the silver augments just because they're the kind of cheapest one. And again, all these tips are only going to apply to stage 2-1. So if I say an augment is F tier or something like that, that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's bad on stage 2-1 relative to everything else you can kind of get. So I organized this in a bunch of different categories, S through F. So S is pretty much like always take them. There's also a difference between economy starts and like combat starts, and you want to use one to win streak, one to lose streak with. So just because one augment is going to be in high tier doesn't mean it's going to be an always take, unless I say always take. But I guess you still need to meet the conditions sometimes. But S just means it's like super, super good. A is like almost always take. B is situational. And C is take in a worst case scenario or reroll. And then F is like never take them. So let's move on into the augments. So silver, we have Infiniteam. Infiniteam, one of the best comps right now. I think it's like the second best comp in the S tier right now. And I would always take this with at least 4 Infiniteam units. If you're at like 3 or 2, you might consider doing it, but generally with 4+, it's going to be an always take. Next up, we have, it's just an alphabetical by tier. So Band of Thieves, Exiles, great for win streaking and flexing. Mascot, good if you have an early Vex with at least 1 tier, or if you have like 4 mascots in stage 2-1, then like sure, go for it. Sure Shot Heart, only take this if you have a Last Whisper component and if you're going AD, obviously. And if you don't have that, I just wouldn't consider this, even though it's A tier. AFK, great for econing. Anima Squad Heart, only with 4+ copies of Anima. It used to be 5+ copies, but since Anima got buffed, I think 4+ is pretty good kind of threshold. Celestial Blessing, treat this like a late game augment, so use this as like an econ opener and then kind of use it more later on. Consistency, great with econ opener, and then there are very rare cases where you can win streak with it. I've done it before. I've also seen like really high ranked players do it before, but it's super, super rare. Maybe like 1 out of 20 consistency games, and you don't even get consistency that often. So maybe like 1 game a set, you could kind of win streak consistency. Cybernetic Uplink, yeah, it's decent. Duelist Heart, only if you have a Locket or if you have 4 duelists on stage 2-1. Electrocharged, only take with a 2-star tank, because it really only works if your tanks are strong, and it's even better with either Static Shiv or Ionic Spark. Future Sight's mediocre right now. Item Grab Bag, good for win streaking. Makeshift, good if you have only offensive items. Oxforce Heart, only take if you can force the Oxforce comp, and that's good with either like bows or like an AP opener. Pandora's items, decent. Preparation, if you can like want to flex or do a delayed win streak, it's nice. Renegade Heart, okay. So even though Renegade's one of the best comps right now, like the Jhin Viego comp, Renegade Heart is still only okay because you can't really activate it till later on. Second Wind, this one is good with comps that have strong tanks, so if you plan on going like mech or something like that, you could always consider Second Wind, and it's just good all around. Spellslinger Heart, only take with 4 copies of Spellslingers. Thrill the Hunt, if you have 2 stars that do damage, definitely usable for win streaking, but only take this if you have 2 stars, because if you don't have a 2-star, that means you're not killing anything, so that means you're gonna get rocked. Tiny Titans, only good with econ opener, or if you have like nothing else better to take. Onto the C tier, we have Admin Heart. If you could go 4 admin on 2-1, sure, but I'd rather pass on this. Battle Mage, whatever. Brawler Heart, Brawler comp just isn't that popular right now, but if you have a 2-star Brawler, it's still useful. Cybernetic, Implants, and Shell, whatever. If you have no buildable items, and like maybe you want to win streak still, maybe you have some upgrades, like I guess you could take it. Defender Heart, decent if you're going for the mech, or if there are a lot of AD opponents. So if there are 3 or more AD opponents, I'd consider going for it. Featherweights, if you can win streak or reroll a 1 or 2 cost, go ahead. Featherweights, very specific circumstances only. Knife's Edge, okay for streaking, okay for duelists. Luden's Echo, only with the blue buff. Pandora's Bench, whatever. Star Guardian Heart, probably not. Triforce, probably not. Hacker Heart, no. And Heart, no. And then these you can't get because they only show up in stage 3 or 4. Onto the gold augments. Gold's the most popular type of augment. It just shows up the most, I believe. But in the S tier, we have Infiniteam Crest, same with the Infiniteams from before. Maybe you could take it with 4+, but if you have 5+, like don't even think, just take it. Anima Squad, 4+ Anima, built different. If you have at least 1 2-star, I would take it, preferably with a Last Whisper component as well, because you mainly play around Samira or Jhin. After that, we have Exiles. Exiles is good if it's A or S tier, pretty much always take it. Hustler, if you have at least 1 2-star, I really like Hustler. Mascot Crest, same conditions as the Mascot Heart before. Oxforce Crest, if you have 1 other Oxforce unit and you have like TF items, you could probably get it. And you could always definitely get it if you get any 2-star from the orb. Portable Forge, this is pretty much always take if it's S or A tier, and then get one of these items, and like pretty much any of them work, but these is like the priority I would kind of put it at. Prankster Crest, pretty decent. Salvage Bin, good for early game because you could slam all your items and like flex a bunch of comps, but it's kind of like big brain to play this augment. Star Guardian Crest, have some way to play AP, and hopefully like MF to hold the emblem. Ancient Archives, like yeah, it's okay. Battle Mage, yeah, it's whatever. Brawler Crest, Brawlers just aren't that great right now, but if you have like 4+ Brawler units or a 2-star Brawler, go ahead and take it. Calculated Loss, if you have the Econ Opener with no upgrades, definitely take this. Celestial Blessing, highly mediocre. It's kind of like barely helps you in the early game, but definitely really good later on. Clear Mind, Cluttered Mind, kind of like the same Econ Augment kind of minded thing. Pretty decent. Nothing too much to say there. If you want to do like any sort of fast 8 strategy, both of these are really good for that. Cybernetic Uplink, sure. Duelist Crest, only with 4 Duelists and Locket. Electrocharge, same condition as before. Featherweight, same thing. First Aid Kit, very situational. Jeweled Gauntlet, pretty decent. It's more of a late game augment. It's kind of like the same thing as Celestial Blessing. You kind of take it just because it's like pretty good like throughout the whole game, but it might not be the best thing to take on stage 2-1 if you get offered something else. By the way, most of the gold augments, as you can see right now, like a lot of B tiers. That means it's like a pretty balanced augment, which is good because it shows up the most often. Makeshift Armor, only with no offensive items. Metabolic, great with Econ Openers. Phony Frontline, if you're win streaking, it's incredibly good. Preparation, same thing. Renegade Crest, same thing. Rich Get Richer, great with Econ Openers. Riftwalker Crest, if you're like forcing Riftwalker, sure, but like I wouldn't just take this unless the other stuff is like complete garbage, because it's like, yeah, Riftwalkers are a great comp right now. I think I list them as like the best comp, but if you're like just forcing it for no reason, it's kind of risky, but it is takeable. Scope Weapons, if you have Jax and are forcing Brawlers, take this. Second Wind, good for win streaking. Spellslinger Crest, if you have Spellslinger items or 3 or more Spellslinger units, take it. Sunfire Board, like pretty decent all around. Sure Shot Crest, if you have Last Whisper component. Three's Company, great for econing, so take this with like either a lose streak start, or if you like want to force some sort of 3-cost reroll, definitely usable there. Trade Sector, delayed win streak. True Twos, take this if you have good items but bad units. Underground Heart, definitely go for those Underground Tubers if you want. Aegis Crest, whatever. Ascension, I didn't even mean to say that because it's there, but it really is like, it is decent in the early game, but some comps don't really use it, so you kind of limit your comps whenever you go for Ascension, because not every comp likes a long fight. Axiom Arc, this is definitely for late game combat training. If you have like a Draven or Gnar early, like you could take it. Cybernetic Implants, if you have no buildable items and have a Last Whisper component, go ahead. Cybernetic Shell, if you have no buildable items, sure. Defender Crest, if you have 3 or more AD components. Double Trouble, they did buff this, but it's still whatever, especially in the early game. Heart Crest, probably not. Luden's Echo, only with the blue buff. Thrill the Hunt, if you have 2 stars. Triforce, if you can play 3-cost units on 2-1 or force like a 3-cost reroll, go ahead. And then like Admin, Hacker, Mecha Prime, Quick Draw, Supers, just no on those, and then the rest you cannot get. So now onto Prismatic Augments. So I thought they removed Ace in the Hole showing up on stage 2-1, but I checked the data. Apparently it still does show up. So if it does, it's good, but it probably won't show up. In fact, if it does show up for you, like let me know, because I haven't heard of it, but someone told me like, no, it's in the data. It says it shows up there. But if you do get it, like it's done like exceptionally well. So definitely check that out. Prankster Crown, you probably take this. Really good in a lot of builds right now, like the Gnar build, or like any Echo comp can use it really well, or Anima Squad. Built different if you have Last Whisper component and at least 1 2-star. Cruel Pack, good. Cursed Crown, good for win streaking. Duelist Crown, pretty solid. Electrocharge, same condition as before. Infiniteam Crown, definitely take that if you're going for Infiniteams. Mascot, if you have the Vex or Vex items and it gives you Malphite 2-star, go for it. Woodland Charm, if you have a 2-star, great for win streaking. And then in the B tier, Ancient Archives, you just need to remember to tailor your traits. So I believe if you have 6 or 7 traits active, you can get 1 tailored augment. If it's 0 to 5, it's 4 random ones. Sometimes you could save it, sometimes you could just pop it though, and then just kind of have it decide what you're going that game. Anima Squad, if you have 5+ anima, it's good. This one is 5+, the other ones are 4+. It's because the crown, it only gives you half an item, so it's kind of weaker. Birthday present, definitely solid. Featherweights, it's okay. You really have to force a 1 or 2 cost reroll. I wouldn't take this one for win streaking. Pretty much only do the rerolls. Future Sight, whatever. Golden Ticket, aim for 2 cost reroll, but 3 or 1 is also good. Item Grab Bag, only take this if you have 2 stars or an upgrades and think you can win streak. Level Up, pretty solid. If you have a lot of gold, it's more useful than if you have less. Living Forge, pretty solid. March of Progress, solid too. Oxforce Crown, if you have 1 bow or tier, that's definitely takeable. Preparation, same thing as before. Radiant Relics, if you're going mech, Radiant Relics is really good if you get like a tank item for them. But apart from that, go for like some of the items I have listed out here. Renegade Crown is all right. Riftwalker, same thing. Spellslinger, same thing. Star Guardian Crown, if you have 4 more Star Guardian units, take it. Sure Shot Crown, only if you have a Last Whisper component or if it gives you Silver 2-star. Underground, yeah, if you want to Underground. Windfall, if you have no upgrades, it's pretty solid, especially if you're like lose streaking. Admin Crown, only take if you have like Camille 2-star and a good admin for win streaking. Aegis Crown, like, yeah, you probably don't want these two. Bandit Thieves, it's if you're streaking. Binary Airdrop, I probably wouldn't take this, it's okay though. Brawler Crown, if you're forcing brawlers, yes. Celestial Blessing, not the best. Implants and Uplink, like if you don't have buildable items, go for them. Defender Crown, if there are 3 or more AD, take it. Double Trouble, again, it's nerfed, so you'd probably want it later on. Hacker Crown, probably not. Heart Crown, if you have a tier, sure, or like a blue buff preferably. Knife's Edge, you could win streak with this or play Duelist. Lucky Gloves, if you have another glove to make a second Thieves Glove later, it's decent. Luden's Echo, only with a blue buff. New Recruit, just highly mediocre all around. Super Soul, not the best. And then Earth's Grab Bag, take this if your items are bad but you have a strong team, like you have a bunch of upgrades but like you want to build some items, grab the Earth Grab Bag. Wise Spending is just mediocre. And then like No to Battle Mage, Cybernetic Shell, Mecha Prime Crown, Quick Draw, and Triforce. And then the rest you can't get. Let's move on into the 1-cost hero augments now, because these are pretty important because I changed the way to word this. So I pretty much took out the notes, but the notes are all up here. So you want to do one of 2 things if it's a 1-cost hero augment. Either take a support augment and just tailor it around like what comp you're playing, or take one of the flex ones, or you reroll a carry augment. So if you're rerolling a carry augment, let's take a look at Ash Laser Focus right now. If it's in the A tier, you want 2 copies of that unit and good items for them, or 3 copies of that unit. So kind of use that as a guide. If they're B tier, you want 1 more of those copies. C tier, 1 more. D tier, 1 more. And then like kind of the same conditions. But if something's like S tier, let's say like Ash Laser Focus was S tier, you could probably just take it with 1 copy and good items, or like 2 copies of the same champion. And that's pretty much how that's gonna work. So I'm gonna go over the S and A tier, and then the B and below you can read on your own time on the website, bunnymuffins.lol/augments. But Hyperbolic Time Chamber, it's just really good because Infiniteam's really good right now. Laser Focus, we have this team comp on the meta snapshot, really solid. Rocket Grab fits in almost every comp. Lulu Growth Spurt, you could do any sort of like hard comp or gadgeteen comp. Nasus Soul Eater, one of the best Anima Squad augments. And then Pantheon Hallucination, pretty good because any Infiniteam augment is going to be really good right now. So let's move on into the 2-cost hero augments now. So there's no OP 2-cost hero augments. The ones I have comps for on the meta snapshot is Jinx Get Excited and Yasuo Winds of the Wanderer. Apart from that, like, you don't really want to go for any like strong 2-cost reroll. So the rest are probably going to be support augments. Like Annie is a support augment, Burning Spirit, Everyone Goes Boom support augment, Small Game Hunter, Mana Tempering, Time and a Half. Those are all support augments. Those are going to be the best ones right now. And then everything else, pretty much if it fits your team comp and you want to force that comp, just like choose that one. You know, that's really all there is to it. The only ones you want to avoid is Rising Spell Force and Cleansing Safeguard. I guess we should look at the 1-cost. Like, don't take Illuminating Singularity. Onto the 3-cost augments. These are rare. So again, if you have a lot of time to study the game, definitely look over the 3-cost augments. But if you do not, let's say time is limited, focus more on the gold first, then the silver, then the prismatic, then the 1-cost, then the 2-cost. Because 3-cost, it's very rare that they pop up at stage 2-1, but sometimes they do. Right now, I think the Rammus augments are both really good, Spike Shell and Armadillo. Temper Tantrum, if you want to just force Gnar, it's going to be the best one. Mirror Image is just like pretty solid overall. There's nothing like... especially if you have a 2-cost unit, you kind of treat it the same as Woodland Charm. Morgana Fears Freedom, always going to be one of the best early game augments because she just hits the entire team. And in the A tier, these are going to be some of those that you like kind of force that comp with. So if you get Spread Shot, like definitely just force it. Jack's Relentless Assault, same thing. But some of the support ones, they could kind of fit in a bunch of different comps. Onto the B tier, this is where you should consider rerolling if you see like a lot of 3-cost augments, because like the S and A tiers are much better than the B tier. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I'm not saying don't go for B or C tiers in the 3-cost units, but some definitely do outshine each other in the early stages. But again, like the 3-cost augments even showing up at stage 2 is very rare, so it doesn't happen all the time. So don't like think too much about this, but I'll let you study this list in your own time. If it happens to pop up, you just like open up the page, Control F, and see like if you meet the conditions to pick some of these augments. That's kind of how I would use the guide. But for the augment guides, like definitely like always take the S tiers, always pay attention to that. And before we head off, we're gonna do the BunnyMuffins tip of the day. So the tip of the day is, so you know how it's important to scout whenever the augment selection comes up? And I say some of these like, oh, make sure there are 3 attack damage opponents if you're picking Defender Heart, for example. And scouting's definitely important. But if you ever get one of the S tier comps, just insta-pick it so that other people scout you so that they are afraid to pick the augment. It's very important to kind of do that because it lowers the chance you get contested, and it's not as obnoxious as typing in chat saying like, oh, I'm going for this comp. Like you could pick this and then type like, oh, I'm going Infiniteam, no one contests me. Like, yeah, you could do that, but sometimes it gets the players who like would just contest you just to annoy you. But if you just take the augment and don't say anything really quickly, if they do scout you, they're probably going to be less inclined to take it unless they know that they're going to be contested, which certainly does happen. I'm not saying this is like a foolproof strategy or anything like that, or like it's 100% going to work, but it definitely does help just to insta-lock good augments because it lowers the chance that other players would also take it. So, but that is the tip of the day. That's going to be it for the video, but I hope to see you all in the meta snapshot that I posted the other day too, if you want to know what the best comps are, or head on over to bunnymuffins.lol/meta. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe, and of course smash that like button. Each like is an LP I gain before the next video.